Greetings, this is Bread and Co-ops. Let's just get started with the heavy stuff. What is Marxism? Marxism refers to the collective writings of Karl Marx, a philosopher and all-around social scientist from 19th century Germany. Hope that was informative. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to... What? What do you mean no? That's not enough? Marxism is an attempt to scientifically analyze human history by studying the relationship between goods and who makes those goods. It's a dialectic approach, meaning it seeks to find and solve inherent contradictions in what it studies. Spoiler alert, that contradiction is class conflict. Now, the dialectic process is described in these terms. There's the thesis, the original fact or idea, its opposing antithesis, and their merged synthesis. For Marx, the creation of new syntheses out of previous class conflicts is the driving force of history. History is best studied by asking who makes things, how they make those things, and why that's bad. Basically. But, to be clear, it's also, very literally and very retroactively, the collected beliefs of a guy named Karl Marx. That intro is not a joke. Not everything that gets called Marxism fits into a nice, single, coherent narrative. Unfortunately. One more point of note before we delve into this. German philosophy in general, by nature of just the German language, has this totally cool feature where you can just take two words, stick them together, and make a totally new word that means exactly whatever it is you want it to mean. This makes translating, reading, and discussing German philosophy kind of a nightmare. I hope I get to inflict just a tiny bit of my undergraduate suffering on you, so I hope you're into that kind of thing. So, let's consider the relationship between goods and the people that make them. Sadly, we need to establish a few specific building blocks using specific Marxist terms because German philosophy. At the bottom, we first have labor power. Luckily, that's about what it sounds like. The innate mental and physical ability of people to create things. It's the capacity to do work, separate from the work itself. That's just labor. Along with labor power, we have the means of production, or the means of labor. For now, we'll use those interchangeably. The means of production are the tools, facilities, resources, and factories required to make things. Those two things combined, the ability to do work, and the tools needed to do that work, are called the productive forces. The combination of tools and people needed to create things of value. Now, putting a factory worker in a factory doesn't automatically produce goods. That's why we must also define relations of production. That refers to the social relationships that develop, sometimes freely, sometimes coerced, to actually get people working to create products. Labor laws, Zoom meetings with your supervisors, even the structure of families and communities. Despite the name, it doesn't specifically refer to relations of production itself, but all relations to all things necessary for production to happen. That leads us to the summit of the Marxist pyramid, the mode of production. The mode of production is the description of how the productive forces interact with the relations of production. God, I love German philosophy. To put these specific and bizarre terms into a modern context, let's quickly define the capitalist mode of production as an example. Under capitalism, people with enough money can buy tools, factories, or businesses, and then employ other people to work them under their terms. Or, using our newly learned Marxist terminology, capitalists are people that can buy the means of production, use that authority that comes with the ownership to largely define the relations of production, and then buy labor power. They are able to then profit off the difference between what it costs to pay labor and the value of what that labor creates. Labor that cannot create surplus value tends to not naturally happen under capitalism, which is why we have GoFundMe and Patreon. Now, in a very real way, that is Marxism. If you look at history and decide to analyze it through a lens of class conflict, bam. Go home, we're done. Just end of video. But, for context, it's important to consider how Marx did so, since Marxism describes both a process of historical analysis and a specific interpretation of that historical analysis. So, let's talk about that. Next time on Bread and Co-ops. In the meantime, do the subscribe thing and the like thing and let me know what topics you want me to discuss. That is more or less a requirement, comrade.